Hello and welcome to Spectrum Television News at 9. I am Uyai and I can come to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. Let's take a look at the major stories. President Tinubu congratulates Uzodimma Diri Ododo. NLC, TUC begin nationwide strike midnight today. Plus, United Nations warns Gaza aid work will ground to a halt in 48 hours without fuel. We'll bring you details of these stories and more in a moment. Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin the news tonight from the national scene where President Bola Tinubu has said that the judiciary alone can build the confidence of both local and international investors to bring in investments into Nigeria. Tinubu made the assertion today in Abuja while declaring open the 2023 All Nigeria Judges Conference of the Superior Court organized by the National Judicial Institute. The president, who was represented by the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi-San, said the economic transformation of Nigeria cannot be left to only the executive arm of government, while reiterating his commitment to ensuring absolute independence of the judiciary. The president also said that he had directed that the issue of the upward review of remuneration of judicial officers be revisited. Tinubu also appealed that legal practitioners in private practice who had distinguished themselves should be considered for appointment to the appellate court. Meanwhile, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has prayed for God's guidance after partaking in the Lesser Hajj in Saudi Arabia, saying his prayers encompass Nigeria's progress and the well-being of humanity. The President, who recently attended the Saudi Africa Summit in Riyadh, shared insights into the nature of his supplications while fielding questions from the press. When asked about his specific prayers for Nigeria, President Tinubu said the prospect of the country is yet to blossom to the level they require, that it needs hard work and prayers. Speaking further, Tinubu stated that the strength of Nigeria is in its diversity. In the meantime, President Bola Tinubu has said that he is committed to changing the narrative of Nigeria for the benefit of all Nigerians. Tinubu stated this while briefing newsmen at the end of rituals for the performance of the Lesser Hajj in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. The president noted that his administration was determined to change the narrative through various reforms, programs, and policies that would ultimately benefit the citizens. Meanwhile, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has congratulated Governor Hope Uzodimma of Imo State, Governor Doye Diri of Bayelsa State, and Governor-elect Usman Ododo of Kogi State on their victory in the November 11 governorship elections. Special Advisor to the President and Media and Publicity, Agurin Gelali, disclosed this in a statement today. The President hailed the electorate in Imo, Kogi, and Bayelsa for their participation in the electoral process, affirming the resilience of democratic institutions and the power of the people in the political landscape. Tinubu noted that the outcome of the elections reflects the people's wishes, emphasizing that democracy thrives when voters reward competence, transparency, governance, while expressing gratitude to the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) for working assiduously to create a level playing field for all contestants, and the nation's security agencies for maintaining law and order during the highly anticipated elections. The president affirmed the need for a sustained commitment to all efforts aimed at further sanitizing the electoral system and enhancing the credibility of future elections. In a related development, former President Muhammadu Buhari has congratulated the All Progressives Congress governorship candidates in Imo and Kogi State, Senator Hope Uzodinma and Usman Ododo, respectively, on the victory at the last Saturday's election. In a statement by the spokesperson to the former president, Garba Shehu, Buhari thanked the people of the two states for reaffirming their confidence in the nation's biggest political party. The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) affirmed Uzodinma's re-election, having won in all the 27 local government areas of the state. In Kogi, the candidate of the Usman Ododo was declared the winner of the election by the electoral body with 446,237 votes. In the meantime, the Independent National Electoral Commission has announced the incumbent governor, Senator Duo Diri, winner of the state's governorship election held on Saturday. The state returning officer and vice chancellor, Federal University of Technology, Minna, Professor Kuta Farouk, made the announcement at the Professor Mahmoud Yakubu Media Center, INEC Yenagoa, Bayelsa State. The incumbent governor Diri won the election in 6 of the 8 local government areas of the state. His rival and candidate of the All Progressives Congress (APC), Timothy Silva, won only 2 local government areas. The local government won by the PDP candidates include Kolokuma, Okpokuma, Obia, Yenogwa, Sangbama, Nebe, Ekeromo, Brass, and Southern Icho, while Silva of the APC won Nembe and Brass local government areas. Elsewhere, the Kogi State Governor-elect Ahmed Ododo has thanked his supporters and other stakeholders for their support in ensuring his victory at the Saturday governorship election in the state. Ododo's appreciation was contained in a statement today titled "Thank You Message by Governor-elect of Kogi State, Ododo Ahmed Usman," and made available to newsmen. According to the statement, the governor-elect pledged that his administration would foster a united and prosperous community of Kogi citizens with a common destiny. Additionally, Ododo was confident that with the support of Kogis, his administration would produce positive results. Meanwhile, Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State has thanked supporters following his re-election. Uzodinma became the Imo governor in 2020 after the Supreme Court nullified Emeka Ihedioha's victory. The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) had declared the All Progressives Congress (APC) candidate as the winner of the Imo governorship election after he cleared all 27 local government areas of the southeast state. He said the latest victory shows he won the Imo governorship election back in 2019 but was cheated until the Supreme Court came to the rescue. In a related development, the Senate President Godswill Akpabio and the All Progressives Congress (APC) National Chairman Abdullahi Ganduje have congratulated Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma and his Kogi counterpart Usman Ododo on their election victory at the just concluded governorship election in the state. In his congratulatory message to the Imo State Governor, Akpabio commended Uzodinma for his resilience and commitment to genuine democratic practices, saying that good governance had triumphed over propaganda. Akpabio also commended the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) for refusing to give in to blackmail and conducting a free and fair election. The Senate President noted that despite attempted strikes and manipulated blackmail of those he considered enemies of the Imo people, God took control of the situation. We move down to the red chambers, where the Senate today quizzed the Accountant General of the Federation, Oluwatoyin Median, during a session on the 2024-2026 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework (MTEF). In the session before the Joint Senate Committee on Finance made in report that zero revenue accrued from the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited (NNPCL), as well as the solid mineral sector, and an abysmal figure from the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission (NUPRC) in the last 2 years. The lawmakers expressed dissatisfaction with the explanation of non-performance by the sectors, directing the AGF to provide names of agencies found wanting in their revenue obligations so they could immediately be called to order. Reports say in Median's submission of the 2020 budget revenue of the Federation, projected revenues for stamp duties were pegged at 16 billion naira, but actual collection came to 119.4 billion naira. Meanwhile, the 10th Senate has assured that it will reconsider the diaspora voting bill this week. The Senate leader Okoyemi Bamidele, APC Ekiti, made this known during a virtual dialogue organized by Engage Diaspora Foundation in collaboration with the Directorate of Diaspora and International Affairs of his office. The dialogue was themed a pivotal step toward achieving diaspora voting rights. Recall that the 9th Senate had in March 2022 rejected the bill on diaspora voting. The bill had sought to amend the 1999 Constitution to allow Nigerians living outside the country to participate in the electoral process of voting and be voted for. In his presentation, Bamidele, who was the chief host and chief speaker at the event, assured Nigerians in diaspora that the 10th Senate would put in more efforts to pass the bill this time around. In the meantime, the Senate President Godswill Akpabio says of the three arms of government, legislators are the most misunderstood and attacked by Nigerians. According to him, Nigerians blame lawmakers for everything, including things not directly under their control. The Senate President, represented by the Senator representing Ogun Central, Shoaib Salisu, said this at the 100th birthday colloquium of the Second Republic lawmaker, Senator Kunle Oyero, in Abeokuta, Ogun State. From the Green Chambers, the House of Representatives today issued the Industrial Training Fund (ITF) a 48-hour ultimatum to give an explanation on missing funds of up to 3 billion naira. The chairman of the Committee on Finance, James Faleke, gave the ruling during the continued hearing on the Medium-Term Expenditure Framework (MTEF) and Fiscal Strategy Paper (FSP), when the agency was unable to explain how the funds were utilized. Similarly, the committee directed the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission to explain within 72 hours why a company was licensed to provide meters. The company said to have received 39 billion naira from the Ministry of Power, but still did not provide the meters. The committee is concerned that a company which seemingly lacks the capacity to execute the projects was licensed. It also directed the Nigerian Communications Commission (NCC) to explain how it spent 291 billion naira in 2022 on broadband across the country, as the committee questioned it on details of the provision of broadband services after the NCC said the services were provided to airports and markets. In another development, former President of Nigeria Goodluck Ebele Jonathan has sued for peace as the West African leaders return to Liberia for presidential runoff. This comes at the West Africa Elders Forum YF election mission to Liberia, led by Jonathan, arrived in Monrovia ahead of the country's runoff presidential election scheduled for Tuesday. Jonathan is accompanied on the mission by former Burkina Faso Prime Minister and one-time President of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, Kadri Orego, as well as staff of the YF Secretariat. Moving away from that, the federal government has promised to provide 80,000 houses in the next 8 years as part of its measures to breach the housing deficit faced by Nigerians. Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, Mahmouda Maman, disclosed this in an interview with newsmen today in Kaduna during the 12th meeting of the National Council on Lands, Housing and Urban Development. Maman said that the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Tinubu was keen on doing things differently, adding that the ministry had presented a memorandum that had been approved by the president, particularly about the social housing scheme. While the Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawalle, has said that the federal government has achieved a lot in the fight against oil theft, Matawalle, in an interview with pressmen, said many practical gains had been recorded in the resolve to end oil theft in the Niger Delta region. According to him, the country was hopeful of producing 1.9 million barrels of crude oil per day before the end of the year. The defense minister said the administration of President Bola Tinubu had invested heavily in modern weapons and equipped the military to bring an end to all forms of crimes, including banditry and oil theft. In a separate development, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, today received the United Arab Emirates UAE Ambassador to Nigeria, Salem Said Al-Shamasi, at his office in Abuja. During the meeting, Wike said he was concerned over the visa ban on Nigerians and hoped that the UAE government would expedite the restriction lift to enable Nigerians to travel to the country. He commended the tourism attraction the city had been able to garner over the years and hoped that Nigeria would emulate this. The minister further said the relationship between both countries was important to foster national development and promised that the federal government would explore more ways to partner with the UAE to ensure economic growth in Nigeria. For his part, the ambassador explained that over the past months, the UAE government had been working to close some gaps and lift the visa ban on Nigerians, though he said the government had encountered some challenges that led to the stalling of the visa ban lift. He assured the minister that very soon there will be good news. Away from that, Saudi Arabia authorities have cancelled the visa of all the 264 passengers airlifted by Nigeria's major carrier, Air Peace, on arrival at the country from Kano. They insisted that the airline should return them to Nigeria. According to reports, the flights took off from the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos, via the Aminu Kano International Airport, Kano, on Sunday night and arrived in Saudi Arabia's major city, Jeddah, today without issues. However, on landing, the Saudi Arabian authorities announced that all the passengers' visas were cancelled. When the Nigerian embassy waited in, Saudi authorities were said to have reduced the number of passengers that would be returned to 170 from 264. Meanwhile, Saudi Air has been operating directly from Nigeria to Saudi Arabia, and since Air Peace started flight service to the Middle East nation at relatively lower fares, it has been receiving high patronage, and as a Nigerian carrier, it helps to conserve foreign exchange for the country. In another development, the Nigerian Labour Congress (NLC) and the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria (TUC) counterparts have resolved to commence the planned nationwide strike from midnight today. The strike is the protest The the strike, I beg your pardon, is in protest of the battering of the NLC president and others in Owerri, Imo State on November 1st, as well as of the pending labor issues in Imo State. They had on November 7 resolved to declare a nationwide strike by Tuesday, November 14, if their demands were not met. Recall that suspected agents of the state and security operatives had descended on Ajero alongside others. Over now to judiciary, where the Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja will on Tuesday resume hearing on the appeal filed by the governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party in Sokoto State, Saidu Umar, against Governor Ahmed Aliyu of the All Progressives Congress. Recall that the three-man elections petitions tribunal led by Justice Haruna Mishila, in a unanimous judgment delivered on September 30 this year, dismissed the petitions of the PDP, saying the petitioners failed to prove the 6 grounds formulated in the petition. He said the grounds bordered on alleged ineligibility for Aliyu and Gobia to contest, falsification of certificates, variation of names, election frauds, and non-compliance with electoral guidelines. He said petitioners were unable to prove the allegations beyond reasonable double doubt as required by law, as 70% of exhibits were out of context because they relate to state assembly elections conducted on the same date. In education, the West African Examination Council (WAEC) has announced that it will migrate its WAEC for private candidates examination diet from paper and pencil tests to computer-based examination (CBE). WAEC, in a statement by its spokesperson Moyosola Adeshina, said the innovation will commence with the West African Senior School Certificate Examination WAEC for Private Candidates 2024 First Series, which is slated to be held in February 2024. The examination body also stated that the examination will be conducted in urban centers and cities, and candidates with special needs have been factored into the plan, noting that registration for the examination will commence on Monday, December 18, 2023. WAEC added that arrangements have been made for a mock examination to be conducted in February 2024 before the examination commences, to enable candidates to familiarize themselves with the new examination platform. Meanwhile, the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board (JAMB) has pledged to cooperate with the Senate to probe alleged admission racketeering, particularly in the case of one Chinyere Ikwe at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, Enugu State. The JAMB Registrar, Professor Aisha Koloyede, made the pledge in Abuja during this year's Customer Service Week of the board. Oyolede said JAMB welcomed the Senate probe, noting that the examination body was grateful that the Senate chose to invite it to speak on the issue. Recall that the Senate held on Wednesday resolved to investigate allegations of admission racketeering in universities following a motion by Senator Onyeka Nwebonyi representing Ebonyi North. Away from that, the Borno State government said it has enrolled 124,000 vulnerable people affected by insurgency into the healthcare system in some hard-to-reach local government areas in the state. Executive Secretary Borno State Contributory Healthcare Management Agency, Dr. Sela Abba, disclosed this to newsmen in Maiduguri. Dr. Sela said the agency aimed to enroll 250,000 vulnerable people affected by the conflict. He stressed that the initiative prioritizes their well-being, ensuring that each primary health care center (PHC) receives the necessary funding tailored to their unique needs, especially in the hard-to-reach communities in Lake Chad. He said the development and revival of these once devastated communities require a collaborative effort between the government and its citizens to restore health facilities in their various constituencies. Meanwhile, the Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke has sworn in new members of the state's statutory commissions. A statement signed by the spokesperson to the governor, Olawale Rashid, today said the governor was represented at the swearing-in by the Deputy Governor, Kola Adewusi. The swearing-in followed the confirmation of the nominees as forwarded to the State Assembly by Governor Ademola Adeleke. According to reports, the confirmation of the Statutory Commission was made today during plenary at the State House of Assembly, Osogbo. Still to come in the news. Australia sides back online after cyber attack. Stay tuned for details of this and more after this time out. Thanks for staying tuned, and now to the rest of the news stories. In Africa, Gabon's military leaders who deposed President Ali Bongo Ondimba in August announced today that elections would be held in August of 2025 under a timetable that first foresees national dialogue. Reports say the conference, scheduled for April 2024, would be made up of all the country's vital actors. Recall that Ali Bongo, 64, who had ruled the Central African country since 2009, was overthrown by military leaders on August 30, moments after being proclaimed the winner in a presidential election, which both the army and the opposition declared fraudulent. Meanwhile, Gabon's new Prime Minister Raymond Ndong has said that a 2-year transition before the free elections promised by the country's new military rulers was a reasonable objective. Ndong was appointed as head of the transitional government by General Brice Oligui Nguema, who led the coup d'etat against Ali Bongo Ondimba. Still in Africa, the latest negotiation toward a global treaty to combat plastic pollution opened in Nairobi today, with tensions expected as nations tussle over what should be included in the pact. According to reports, some 175 countries agreed last year to conclude by 2024 a United Nations treaty to address the plastic blighting oceans floating in the atmosphere and infiltrating the bodies of animals and humans. While there is broad consensus a treaty is needed, there are very different opinions about what should be in it. Meanwhile, as the talks formally opened, Peru's Gustavo Meza Curia, chair of the forum's Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, warned that plastic pollution posed a direct threat to the environment, human health, and the delicate balance of the planet. Meanwhile, Kenyans have been given a special holiday to plant 100 million trees as part of the government's goal to plant 15 billion trees in 10 years. The Environment Minister, Sopan Tuya, said the holiday allows each and every Kenyan to own the initiative of planting at least 2 seedlings, leading to the 100 million target. Tuya said the tree planting will be monitored through an internet app which monitors the exercise by allowing individuals and organizations to record activities, including the plant species, number, and date planted. In the meantime, the European Union (EU) has called for an investigation into the reported killing of around 100 people in Burkina Faso last week. The EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell, in a statement, said around 100 civilians, including women and children, were killed in a massacre. Reports say Burkina Faso is trying to contain a jihadist insurgency that spread from neighboring Mali. The military government has been allegedly forcing civilians to join the fight against the Islamist group, who are said to control about 40% of the country. On the foreign scene, the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees UNRWA warned today that its operations in war-torn Gaza would shut down within 2 days due to fuel shortages as fighting rages between Israel and Hamas. The warning came after Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shehir called on the European Union and the United Nations to parachute aid into the Gaza Strip, which has been devastated by fighting between Israel and the Palestinian militant group Hamas. Still on the foreign scene, flags flew at half-mast at the United Nations compounds across the globe today as staff observed a minute's silence for the more than 100 colleagues killed in Gaza during the Israel-Hamas war. The blue and white United Nations flag was first lowered at 9:30 a.m. local time at offices in Bangkok, Tokyo, and Beijing, and later other United Nations offices followed suit. It will be recalled that the United Nations Agency for Supporting Palestinian Refugees UNRWA announced on Friday that 101 of its employees had died in the Gaza Strip since the war erupted just over a month ago. Israel has been relentlessly bombarding the Gaza Strip since Hamas fighters carried out an October 7 attack on southern Israeli communities, the deadliest in the country's history. In a related development, President Joe Biden will urge his Indonesian counterpart Joko Widodo to take a larger role in resolving the Israel-Hamas conflict in talks at the White House today. The meeting had been aimed at showing unity ahead of Biden's summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping in San Francisco this week, with Washington trying to counter Beijing in the Asia-Pacific region. But the devastating conflict in the Gaza Strip will now loom over the talks between Biden, who has firmly backed Israel, and Widodo, the leader of the world's most populous Muslim-majority nation. The United States official, this would include the ceasefire issue, but also long-term goals such as a two-state solution after the war and the rebuilding of the shattered Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, President Emmanuel Macron today hosted religious leaders for talks on combating anti-Semitism in France, a day after Paris March rallied tens of thousands to express anxiety over an upsurge in acts against Jews. There have been growing tensions in France, home to large Muslim and Jewish communities, as war rages in the Gaza Strip between the Palestinian militant group Hamas and Israel, according to Catholic Bishops' Conference head Eric Delmoulin. After the meeting, Macron had urged the religious leaders to make an educational effort to increase the number of measures addressed to young people. Meanwhile, today's talks were a continuation of the appeal for national unity and brotherhood Macron had made in a letter published on Saturday in Daily Le Parisien. Elsewhere, British leader Rishi Sunak has appointed former UK Prime Minister David Cameron as Foreign Secretary in a government reshuffle. Cameron, who was Britain's leader from 2010 to 2016 before quitting after losing the Brexit referendum, replaces James Cleverly, who was appointed Interior Minister in an unexpected move. Meanwhile, British leader has sacked controversial Interior Minister Suella Braverman ahead of a general election expected next year. Still on the foreign scene, U.S. Republican Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina has reportedly dropped out of the 2024 presidential race. Having entered the race in May for the Republican nomination, Scott, aged 58, presented himself as a deeply conservative candidate who could do a better job of healing U.S. political divisions than former U.S. President Donald Trump. Scott's decision to withdraw from the Republican presidential campaign came shortly after the third presidential debate in Miami. Meanwhile, people applying for visas to visit Europe's Schengen area will soon do so via an online platform under a change adopted by EU foreign ministers today. Reports say the shift toward digitalization of the visa process also will do away with the need for applicants to get a sticker on their passports, meaning no more appointments at consulates or service providers' offices. The change, unveiled after a long legislative process, will take effect after technical work on the visa platform, expected to take months, then publication in the EU's Administrative Gazette. Meanwhile, the Schengen area comprises 23 of the 27 EU member countries, plus associated neighbors Switzerland, Norway, Iceland, and Liechtenstein. And now it's time for the latest business and stock market stories. Here is Davina Praise Oman.
Thank you, Uyai and Niekan. Good evening. It is business news, and I am Davina Praise Omang. In the news, one of Australia's major port operators is back online after a cyber attack crippled its facilities. Operations at DP World Australia container terminals in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and Perth were disrupted from Friday to Monday morning. The firm manages around 40% of goods entering and leaving the country. Meanwhile, the outage has not affected the supply of goods to major Australian supermarkets, according to reports. Back in Nigeria, 8 firms have declared 918.1 billion naira as currency revaluation loss following a 68.55% decline in the value of the naira against the dollar as of the end of September 2023. Following a Central Bank of Nigeria move in June to allow the market to determine the value of the local currency, the naira had fallen from 461 per $1 as of December 2022 to 777 naira per $1 in September 2023. An analysis of the financial statements of these firms show that the devaluation of the naira from 465 naira per dollar at the end of May 2023 to 776 naira per dollar gave rise to this recorded exchange loss. The firms include Dangote Sugar Refinery PLC, Dangote Cement PLC, Nestle Nigeria PLC, Nigerian Breweries PLC, Guinness Nigeria PLC, MTN Nigeria Communications PLC, Airtel Africa PLC, MRS Oil Nigeria PLC, and Seplat Energy PLC. According to the World Bank, the naira is one of the worst performing currencies in Africa, losing nearly 40% of its value since the month of June. This has negatively impacted firms like Dangote Sugar, which recorded a revaluation loss of 90.99 billion naira. Still in Nigeria, KPMG forecasts that Nigeria's headline inflation will rise to 30% by December 2023, attributing the anticipated increase to recent reforms such as fuel subsidy removal and the unification of the foreign exchange market. The insights were shared in KPMG's macroeconomic review for the first half of 2023, along with projections for the second half of the year. As of September, Nigeria's current headline inflation rate was reported at 26.72%, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. Nigerian stock market report. Today is the first trading day of the week, and a total of 474.38 million shares in 7,630 deals, corresponding to a market value of 7.75 billion naira, were traded. The current market capitalization of the Nigerian Stock Exchange is 38.8 trillion naira. 123 listed equities participated in trading, ending with 26 gainers and 19 losers. Aluminum extrusion industries led the gainers with 10% share price appreciation, closing at 7 naira 15 kobo per share. On the losing side, Japan Gold and Ventures came out last with an end-of-day price depreciation of 9.09% at 1 naira 80 kobo per share. Fidelity Bank recorded the highest volume of 94 million traded shares. Well, this is all on business news, and back to Uyai and Nekan for the rest of the news.
Thank you, Devina Praise Omang. We'll go to a quick break, and when we return, we'll bring you the rest of the stories on the news at 9. Thanks for staying tuned, and now to the rest of the news stories. On our health news, the Joint Health Sector Unions has urged the federal government to implement the one-for-one replacement policy to address the impact of the unending brain drain in the health sector. The one-for-one replacement policy is to ensure that when a healthcare worker leaves the country or exits the system, they will be replaced immediately. In an interview with newsmen, the acting national chairman of Johesu, Dr. Obinna Ogbonna, said the policy should be implemented immediately to lessen the impact of inadequate manpower in health institutions. He noted that the policy might not totally solve the brain drain in the sector, but it would significantly ameliorate the current deteriorating situation. Still in health, the Enugu state government says it has vaccinated 220,000 girls against the human papillomavirus HPV to prevent cervical cancer. The executive secretary of Enugu State Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Dr. Ifeyinwa Anisheku, who spoke with journalists in Enugu, said the exercise took place between October 24 and 29, recording a 66% coverage rate. Anisheku explained that the vaccination was done in schools, worship centers, and other public places where girls of the age range of 9 years to 14 years were found. Reports say HPV is the most common sexually transmitted infection and is the causative factor of more than 95% of cases of cervical cancer among women. Over now to Isaac for latest sports stories.
Well, thank you so much and good evening. In sports, Boa Vista defender Bruno Onyemachi is a major doubt for Nigeria's World Cup qualifiers against Lesotho and Zimbabwe. Onyemachi sustained an injury in Boa Vista's 3-1 defeat to Farense on Sunday. The left back was replaced by Felipe Ferreira in the 56th minute. The 24-year-old has featured regularly for Super Eagles in recent outings. Cardiff City's Jamilu Collins is the other left back in the team. Victor Osimhen, Samuel Chukwueze and Wilfred Ndidi were not included in the squad for the games due to injuries. The Super Eagles welcomed Lesotho in Uyo on Thursday before flying out to Rwanda to battle Zimbabwe 3 days later for the 2026 World Cup qualifying tournament as it begins. While traveling to Europe, Manchester United's Rasmus Højlund and Christian Eriksen has withdrawn from the Denmark squad for this month's Euro 2024 qualifiers because of injury. Midfielder Eriksen came off after 40 minutes and striker Højlund after 79 in United's 1-0 victory over Luton Town on Saturday. Denmark hosts Slovenia on 17th November and travel to Northern Ireland on the 20th of November. United are currently without Lisandro Martinez, Luke Shaw, Taro Malacia, Casemiro, Johnny Evans and Amad Diallo. Well, finally from the sporting scene, former Arsenal, Chelsea and Barcelona midfielder Cesc Fabregas has been named as interim manager of Italian side Como. Fabregas, who is 36, succeeds Moreno Longo for his first senior management role. He played 17 games for the Serie B side last season before retiring from playing and becoming a coach of the youth and reserve teams. A statement said the club wants it back on a new path that hopefully will provide more excitement and entertainment for the fans. It added that a permanent appointment will be made in the near future. Fabregas' first match in charge will be at home to Ferra Pisolo after the international break on November 25th. Como is 6th in the table with 21 points from their first 12 games. Fabregas joined Como in August 2022 after leaving Monaco, also becoming a shareholder in the club alongside former Arsenal and Barcelona teammate Thierry Henry. Well, that's it on sports. My name is Isaac. Isaac, thank you so much and good evening.
Thank you, Isaac. We head on now to our entertainment news for the night. The organizers of Galaxy Music Awards GMA have unveiled this year's list of nominations, with rising Nigerian rapper Tochukwu Ojogu, popularly known as Odumodu, leading the pack with 4 nods. They include Best Song of the Year for his song Declan Rice, Artist of the Year, Best Street Track Picanto, and Lyricist on the Roll category. He was followed by Burna Boy and Omale, who got 2 nominations each, including Best Album of the Year and Artist of the Year categories. Contemporary High Life singer Flavor also got nominations, including Best Artist of the Year and Song of the Year for his song Game Changer. Omale was nominated for the Album of the Year category for his song Boy Alone Deluxe, while Burna Boy was nominated in the same category for his latest song, I Told Them. Still on entertainment news, controversial Nigerian singer Habib Akikiola, popularly known as Portable, has won the Best New Artist at the 2023 African Entertainment Awards USA. AEUSA. This is Portable's first international music award, I beg your pardon. Portable beats the likes of Black Bones, Odumodu, and Sheyi Vibes, among others, to emerge as winner. A renowned chart recorder, Chart Africa, announced this today in a post on its official X handle, expressing his excitement. Portable reposted it on his official Instagram page, thanking his fans for their unwavering dedication. Lastly, the news tonight. The producers of Egun, a highly anticipated horror title, have announced a new date for its theatrical debut, written by Kayode Kasum and Daryl Lighton, and directed by Kemen Ike Okoro. The all-star cast includes Gideon Okeke, Omaomi Dada, Uzo Oruke, Femi Jacobs, Bolaji Ogumwala, Adedimeji Lateef, Olarotimi Fakunle, Yekini Ibrahim, and Taye Arimoro, amongst others. And that's all we have for you tonight. Do well to follow us on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, SpectrumTv Live. Thank you for watching. This has been the news at 9. My name is Uyai Anyekan. Do have a splendid night rest. Good night, Nigeria.